When we read the Gospel of Luke, we see at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, which is described in Luke 4:16 to 30, that Jesus makes a powerful proclamation that we, living 2,000 years separated, read as rather triumphant. Making what scholars refer to as a free citation, a quotation is comprised of various elements from related yet different passages in a particular text. Jesus stands up in the synagogue of his home village and takes the roll of the reader and draws from the prophet Isaiah and reads or says to the congregation, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." One of the many aspects of Jesus' earthly ministry, aside from his powerful and seeming absolutizing of certain moral values, is it's marked by numerous healing miracles. The sick are cured, the crippled made whole, the deaf are made to hear, and the blind are given their sight. We read these and we think these healings were ideal, that they were sought after gleefully, and that anyone who didn't want to be healed, well, there was something wrong with them. However, there's something that we miss in many of these instances, and they're important not just to the biblical narrative, but to where we are today. And by looking at the story of Jesus healing the blind beggar in Luke 18:35-43. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. I, of course, am Sugarman1976, and welcome back to the BLOGCAST. If this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to smash that like button. If you're a returning viewer and aren't already subscribed, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you'll know when new episodes of the BLOGCAST or any other of my vlogs goes live. Also, you can follow me on X and Instagram at Sugarman1976, links to which are in the link tree in the description below. Also in my link tree, you'll find a link to my bookstore where you can pick up the resources that I use, like the 10th anniversary expanded edition of The Unseen Realm by the late Michael Heiser. Also, purchases from there help me and also help you by making sure you get great deal. So be sure and check it out. In this part of Luke's narrative, Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem for the last time. As he approaches the town of Jericho, he is met by a large crowd who had certain expectations of the itinerant preacher. And such a gathering would imply that the crowd was aiming for Jesus to spend the night, as a banquet would likely have been prepared in his honor. As he approaches, Luke's narrative indicates that a beggar heard the commotion and inquired what was happening, and upon hearing of Jesus' approach, began crying out to Jesus using a title that's only used one other time in Matthew 15:21-28, Son of David. This blind beggar finds himself being yelled at by the crowd to shut up. However, the man's cries become more persistent and eventually catch the attention of Jesus. And the crowd that was attempting to stifle the cries of this desperate man become the means by which he is conveyed into the presence of Jesus, where Jesus asks a question that appears to be rather untactful and even perhaps rude. "What do you want from me?" Kenneth Bailey makes an important statement in his book, Jesus Through Middle Eastern Eyes, about the status and role of beggars such as this man in the community. In traditional Middle Eastern society, beggars are a recognized part of the community and are understood to be offering services to it. Every pious person is expected to give to the poor, but if the poor are not readily available to receive alms, how can this particular duty be fulfilled? The traditional beggar does not say, "Excuse me, mister, do you have a few coins for a crust of bread?" Instead, he sits in a public place and challenges the passerby with, "Give to God." He is really saying, "My needs are beside the point. I am offering you a golden opportunity to fulfill one of your obligations to God. Furthermore, this is a public place, and if you give to me here, you will gain a reputation as an honorable and compassionate, pious person. This may seem odd to us, but we have become disconnected from such concerns as we live a life of relative plenty and ease. We've become just so disconnected from want and discomfort that we often miss the subtle cues that lie in the biblical text and the sense of utter desperation that many of these people had, not just with getting enough to eat, but with living in general. Moreover, there were standards that people were expected to live up to, even the beggars. But not just the average impoverished person who might beg for something to eat, but those who are obviously unable to provide for themselves, such as this blind beggar. When he requests to be healed, he is essentially asking for his world to be changed. We aren't given any backstory for this particular man, and unlike the incident of the blind man that Jesus healed in the temple in John chapter 9, so we don't know if this man was born blind or if he had gone blind as a result of disease, injury, or age. The implication in the text seems to be this man was rather old. These are important facts to consider, as Bailey notes. The difficulty with this profession of begging is that some visible handicap is necessary. A man with one leg or one arm might manage to support himself by begging on a street corner, but a blind man is virtually guaranteed success. At the same time, a blind man, such as a beggar in this story, has no education, training, employment record, or marketable skills. If healed, self-support will be extremely difficult. Believers are often faced by unbelievers with the challenge of disability or disease as an argument against either the goodness or even the mere existence of God. It is argued that the presence of evil or pain is evidence against the fact that God has made the world good, as opposed to perfect. However, there's a sense in which we can argue that the world that God has made is in fact perfect. Everything we need to survive, not just survive, but actually thrive, is not only present in the world, but necessarily present for us just to simply exist. We often take for granted the presence of water, but also fail to recognize that water itself can injure or kill us, either by drowning in it or by the variety of organisms, either large or microscopic, that dwell in it. These facts should humble us, but instead, in our self-important state, we often gripe that the rose has thorns. Our failure to respect the Creator of all things manifests in our disrespect of the creation, which includes us. So when we bump into one of the many sharp corners of reality, we are often offended by it. Often we fail to realize that it is God that is using these things to seek to humble us, and in the process bring out from within us genuine compassion. In order to do that, He has to force into our existence the diseased and the disabled of this world of our own kind, even to the point of afflicting us with such. Even then, we can incorporate that illness or injury into our life so that it ceases to be the element of reality that was intended to engender genuine care and in turn turn it into the tedium of our existence, an inconvenience that can even cause us to willingly accept and even condone terrible actions. The blind man's experience and the community's experience of him had become tedious, and now the Maker has come to his creation, and in coming, he set out to bring something new. Once again, I am Triggerman1976, and if you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button. If you found it interesting, then please share it with your friends. And if you aren't already subscribed, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. Links to follow me on X and Instagram are in the link tree in the description, as well as links to my bookstore, where you can pick up a copy of my debut action thriller, The Turning of Shadow, as well as my book-length essay on the relationship between creation and evolution, Creation's Creed. Be sure to check them out. And until the next time, friends, God bless.